We're very fortunate in Tasmania to have many amazing waterfront properties on the market at any given time. If you compare this with other parts of the country or other parts of the world, you'll soon see how amazing the prices and the opportunities are in the Tasmanian market. Almost all oceanfront and major riverfronting properties in Tasmania have a piece of Crown land 30 metres wide between the property boundary and the water. In most cases, this is public land accessible along the waterfront. While the 30-metre Crown Foreshore Reserve is there to protect the waterfront from development, in some cases you can lease or obtain a licence to use that foreshore reserve between your property boundary and the water. Smaller rivers and creeks around the state have varied water frontages. Many property titles define the edge of the river or the near bank of the river as the property boundary. What this means is the water in the river is actually public land and the property beside the river is privately owned. The third and less common boundary is to have a boundary to the centre of the creek. This often means the boundary with your neighbour is essentially in the middle of the creek and there is no public land in between. It is quite common to see a mixture of the before mentioned water frontages on the same stretch of river in the same municipality due to past development regulations. For example, you can have one property owner with a 10-metre reserve on their side of the creek and the other property owner having a boundary to the centre of the creek. Good agents will provide you with a copy of the title at an inspection which will clearly show how big the reserve is on the title of the property. There are also government websites like the List mapping system that show you from a mapping-based system on the internet where the property boundaries are. There are still a few rare examples of high tide titles and buildings on foreshore reserves that exist that have not been transferred over to the Crown land. However, these are extremely rare cases around the state. There are many properties with small reserves such as 5 or 10 metres. This changes around the state depending on which municipality the property is located in. When subdividing or adjusting land, councils weigh up the cost of maintenance versus the benefit of allowing public access. This determines the size of the reserve and is often affected by the government policy at the time. In many cases, the reserves are unlikely to be used by anyone other than yourself, and the practical difference as a landowner is quite minimal. The hidden costs of building on waterfront property is something that you may not be aware of. If a coastal inundation or flood overlay applies to your title, you may be required to employ a hydrological engineer to prove that you're not going to build above the long-term flood inundation forecasts. This is more likely to occur on lower lying ground rather than cliff-top frontages. However, it's still something to consider. As always, if you'd like to know more or have any questions, let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching.